My boyfriend took my 11-year-old dog to a vet 70 kilometers away to have him euthanized while I was at work, using his dead mother's name on the forms. When the vet called me, I discovered this wasn't the first time. His ex-girlfriend's cat died at the same clinic, and she had a car accident a week before she was planning to leave him. I finally thought my boyfriend was warming up to my dog until I found out he tried to get him euthanized. My boyfriend believed that loving someone meant you had the right to remove anything that competed for their attention, even if it meant killing what they loved most. When I first met Ryan 3 years ago, he seemed like everything I needed. After watching my parents' marriage explode from my dad's affairs, Ryan's talk about loyalty felt like safety. His parents had been together 30 years, and he'd tell these stories about how devoted they were to each other. My mom knows what real partnership means, he'd say with this soft smile. No distractions, no divided attention, just two people choosing each other every day. Coming from my broken home where trust meant nothing, it sounded beautiful. Sure, he'd make odd comments about how his mom never needed friends or hobbies, but he was so attentive in every other way. Fresh flowers appeared on my doorstep. He remembered every story about my terrible boss, and when I got sick, he brought soup and stayed up watching movies with me until I fell asleep. But everything changed when he moved in 2 months ago. The sweet gestures stayed, but new rules appeared. He started timing my phone calls, suggesting my friends were needy, and taking advantage of my kindness. He'd comment on how long I spent at the gym, wondering aloud if I was really just working out. But it was my 11-year-old border collie mix, Biscuit, who brought out something darker in him. Biscuit had been my constant since middle school, through every heartbreak and triumph. Ryan's whole body would tense when I let Biscuit curl between us on the couch, or when I kissed his head goodnight. I started understanding why Ryan's mother moved through their house like a ghost, why she never spoke unless spoken to at family dinners. His father would pat Ryan's shoulder and say, "You're lucky you found a smart girl. She'll learn." His brothers' wives had this hollow look, laughing at unfunny jokes and flinching when doors slammed. But Ryan would hold my hand so gently afterward, tell me how different we were, how our love was stronger because we understood each other. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe that this kind of devotion was better than the lies that destroyed my family. When we build our life together, there's no room for divided loyalties, Ryan announced one night after I'd spent 20 minutes playing fetch with Biscuit. He stood in the doorway with that smile that had started feeling practiced. "I need to know I'm your priority, not some dog." The way he said it made my stomach turn, like Biscuit was just clutter to be cleared away. "You're 23. Time to make adult choices. Successful couples don't have distractions. Look at my parents. No pets, no drama, just dedication." He wanted me to choose him the way his mother had chosen his father, giving up everything else until only the marriage remained. I adapted like a coward, walking Biscuit only during Ryan's late meetings, hiding vet receipts in old purse pockets, deleting photos from my phone, pretending not to notice Biscuit's water bowl mysteriously empty some mornings, his food scattered like someone had kicked it. Ryan would just shrug and suggest Biscuit was getting clumsy with age. The day Ryan was supposed to leave for his family trip up the coast, he held my face between his hands and kissed me hard. "I'll miss you," he said, then surprised me by kneeling down to pat Biscuit's head. For the first time in months, I felt hope flutter in my chest. Maybe he understood that loving me meant accepting all of me, including my old dog. I went to work feeling lighter than I had in weeks, replaying that moment and wondering if things were finally turning around. Then the call came at 3 p.m. My old flatmate from uni worked at a vet clinic 70 kilometers away. "Someone just brought in a dog to be put down. I think it's Biscuit." The photo on my phone showed my boy trembling on an exam table, tail tucked, confused and afraid. I drove those 70 kilometers in a blind panic while the vet sent security footage showing Ryan in the same clothes from that morning, handing over my dog like returning a defective purchase. I held Biscuit the whole drive home, both of us shaking, his head heavy in my lap. Ryan texted that evening like nothing had happened. "How's your day, babe?" and "Miss you already." My fingers typed normal responses while rage built behind my ribs. Then Saturday afternoon, Ryan walked in earlier than I expected, dropping his bags. "Couldn't stand being away," he said, then froze seeing Biscuit. "Wait, he's here? Thank God." His whole body sagged with relief. I left him in the backyard when I packed the car, drove halfway to my parents before realizing. When I rushed back, the gate was open and he was gone. "I figured you'd come home on your lunch break and grabbed him like you sometimes do on Fridays, so I kept driving. I didn't want to text and worry you if I was wrong." When I played Bob's recording, his face went white. He took the phone with shaking hands, replaying the video. "That's Nathan," he whispered, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw him truly afraid. My twin brother, the one my parents pretend doesn't exist. You know I don't like dogs, but this is something he would do. Oh God, is this why they insisted I come alone this weekend? Did they know he was here? Then the doorbell rang. Full story on channel, link below. Through the peephole, I saw him standing there with old family photos clutched in his hands. Nathan looked exactly like Ryan, but disheveled, his hair uncombed and shirt wrinkled. Ryan's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist hard enough to bruise, his fingers digging in as he pulled me back from the door. The grip sent pain shooting up my arm. I tried to pull away, but Ryan held firm, positioning himself between me and the door. His breathing came fast and shallow against my ear. Nathan knocked again, harder this time. Through the peephole, I watched him shift the photos to one hand and pull out his phone with the other. He held it up toward the peephole, screen facing out. Ryan's body tensed against mine as we both saw what Nathan was showing. A viral post from a local community page. The headline read clear even through the distorted peephole view. "Man caught on security camera trying to euthanize dog at local vet clinic." My stomach dropped. The timestamp on the post showed it had been shared over 200 times already. Nathan lowered the phone and knocked again, this time calling out my name. Ryan finally released my wrist, leaving angry red marks where his fingers had been. He stepped back, running both hands through his hair in that way he did when stressed. I rubbed my wrist, watching him pace our small entryway like a caged animal. Nathan's voice came through the door, muffled but clear enough. He was explaining about the security footage, how someone at the vet clinic had posted it online after recognizing recognizing something wasn't right. He mentioned seeing it on his feed and recognizing Ryan immediately. Then Nathan said something that made my blood run cold. He claimed this wasn't the first time, that Ryan's ex-girlfriend's cat had died at the same vet clinic 2 years ago. A week later, she died in what everyone assumed was a simple car accident, right before she was planning to leave him. Ryan spun toward me, his face flushed. He grabbed his phone from his pocket, fingers flying across the screen. Within seconds, he had a saved email pulled up, court records showing Nathan had been institutionalized for stalking that same ex-girlfriend. The documents were extensive, detailing restraining orders and mandatory psychiatric holds. I stood frozen between them, these two identical men separated only by a door and drastically different stories. Biscuit whimpered from his bed in the corner, his tail tucked low. He'd been anxious since we got home from the vet clinic yesterday. The choice pressed down on me: call the police now and let them sort through this mess, or hear both brothers out while I still had some control over the situation. My phone sat heavy in my pocket. One call could end this, but which brother would the police believe? The one with the stalking record, or the one who'd been caught on camera? I made my decision. Keeping my hand near my phone, I reached for the door handle. Ryan stepped forward, but I held up my other hand to stop him. If I was going to figure out the truth, I needed to hear what Nathan had to say. The door opened to reveal Nathan's face. Ryan's face, but somehow different. Where Ryan kept himself meticulously groomed, Nathan had stubble and shadows under his eyes. He clutched the old photos like a lifeline, his knuckles white. Nathan's relief at seeing me quickly shifted to wariness when he spotted Ryan behind me. The brothers stared at each other, mirror images radiating tension. Nathan took a step back, keeping the doorframe between them. He started talking fast, explaining how he'd been trying to reach me for weeks, but Ryan had been intercepting his calls. He showed me his phone log, dozens of attempts, all during times I now realized Ryan had borrowed my phone or suggested I leave it charging in another room. My phone buzzed with an incoming text, then another, and another. I glanced down to see 3 messages arriving simultaneously. My mom needed emergency surgery for her appendix. My boss was threatening to fire me for missing my shift this morning in my panic over Biscuit. And my landlord was on his way for the monthly inspection I'd completely forgotten about. The timing felt impossible. I looked between the brothers, wondering if one of them had orchestrated this chaos. But Ryan looked as surprised as I felt, and Nathan was still focused on showing me something in the old photos. I needed to handle the landlord situation first. Having him arrive to find this scene would only complicate things. Oh boy. Nothing says meet the family quite like your boyfriend's secret twin showing up at your door with receipts about attempted pet murder while you're nursing bruised wrists, and suddenly everyone you know decides to have simultaneous emergencies like they're all synchronized swimmers in the Crisis Olympics. I told both brothers to move to the kitchen while I dealt with it. They went reluctantly, eyeing each other like circling dogs. While I frantically tidied the living room, I heard muffled voices from the kitchen. The tone was identical, that low, threatening rumble I'd heard Ryan use when he thought I wasn't listening. But now it was doubled, 2 versions of the same voice creating an unsettling harmony of anger. A crash made me run to the kitchen. Nathan stood by the table, blood dripping from his nose onto his wrinkled shirt. Ryan stood by the counter, examining his knuckles with detached interest. Nathan touched his nose gingerly, wincing. He claimed he'd walked into the cabinet door, but the fear in his eyes told a different story. The blood kept coming, bright red drops hitting our white tile floor. I grabbed paper towels, my hands shaking as I handed them to him. The doorbell rang. The landlord. I left the brothers in the kitchen, closing the door behind me. My landlord was a decent guy who usually just checked the smoke detectors and made sure we hadn't destroyed anything. I tried to act normal as he went through his checklist. That's when I heard it. A teenage voice outside, loud and excited. Our neighbor's kid, Marcus, was apparently live streaming from his window. His voice carried clearly, "Yo, check this out. There's some crazy twin drama happening next door. 2 identical dudes and they're fighting over this girl." My heart sank. I excused myself from the landlord and went to the window. Sure enough, Marcus had his phone pointed at our kitchen window, where both brothers were clearly visible. The live stream title read, "Twin Drama Next Door. Who's the Evil One?" I watched the viewer count climb. 50, 75, 100 people watching in real time. Comments started flooding in. Some recognized Ryan from around town. Others were making jokes about evil twins and soap operas. But a few comments made my blood run cold. They recognized the situation from the vet clinic post. The landlord finished his inspection and left, completely oblivious to the chaos. I returned to the kitchen to find both brothers on their phones, presumably seeing the same live stream I'd just discovered. Nathan looked panicked. Ryan looked calculating. Within minutes, the situation exploded online. Marcus's live stream was shared to our community Facebook page by his concerned mother, asking if anyone knew about this twin situation at our address. She'd even included our apartment number. The original vet clinic post was being linked in the comments. People were connecting dots, sharing theories, picking sides. Someone posted a Ring doorbell video showing Nathan arriving at our building. Another shared a photo of Ryan at the coffee shop this morning, time-stamped when he'd claimed to be driving back from his parents. Nathan showed me more evidence on his phone. Screenshots of messages he'd tried to send me, photos of Ryan's car at places he'd claimed not to be, but every piece of evidence had a counter-explanation from Ryan. The stalking charges made Nathan look unstable. The institutionalization made his claims seem like delusions. My best friend Emma started texting frantically. She needed Ryan's recommendation letter for nursing school. The application was due in 24 hours, and Ryan was her supervisor at the hospital where she volunteered. Without his recommendation, she wouldn't get in. She begged me to smooth things over, to not let relationship drama affect her future. The pressure built from all sides. My mom's surgeon called, mentioning how I was acting just like when Dad left, making my current fear seem like an overreaction to relationship stress. The word catastrophize stung because it's exactly what my therapist had said I did in relationships. Ryan, ever strategic, started his damage control. He took screenshots of my frantic texts about Biscuit from yesterday, cropping them to remove context. Soon, mutual friends were reaching out, saying Ryan had contacted them with concerns about my mental state. late. The messages showed me seeming unhinged, paranoid, talking about murder plots and twin conspiracies. Nathan tried to give me a folder of what he called evidence, but when he approached our building security desk later, Ryan had already filed a harassment complaint. Building security now had Nathan on a watch list, his attempts to help reframed as stalking behavior. The trap kept tightening. Ryan reminded me he was still listed as an authorized driver on my car insurance, a detail I'd forgotten from when he'd helped me after a minor accident last year. My autopay had just renewed the policy. If I kicked him out, he could report the car stolen since technically he had legal access to it. After 48 hours without proper sleep, my exhaustion caught up with me. At Biscuit's follow-up vet appointment, I accidentally gave the wrong information about his medication schedule. The vet noted it in his medical record. Owner confusion regarding pet medication. Another piece of documentation that made me look unstable. My sister, who'd initially believed me, called with devastating news. Her husband said their involvement in this situation could affect their adoption application. They were so close to being approved for the baby they'd waited 3 years for. She still believed me, she insisted, but they had to step back. The agency was watching their social media, their associations, everything. At the coffee shop where I'd sought refuge to think, the barista leaned over the counter conspiratorially. She mentioned that Ryan had been coming in all week, telling the regular customers I was going through something. Mental health crisis, he'd called it. That explained the strange looks I'd been getting, the way conversations stopped when I walked in. Nathan's claim about the timing started to make sense when Ryan accidentally left a parking garage receipt visible on our counter. The timestamp showed he'd been downtown when he claimed to be packing for his trip, but when I mentioned it, Ryan had a ready explanation. He'd stopped for gas, the receipt must be wrong, why was I tracking his movements anyway? Emma admitted the real reason she needed Ryan's recommendation so desperately. His father ran the hiring committee at the hospital where she hoped to work after nursing school. Without the family connection, she didn't stand a chance. The weight of her dreams pressed against my need for truth. Every attempt to prove Ryan's lies revealed my own problematic behavior. My phone showed I'd been checking his location obsessively through Find My Phone dozens of times a day for weeks. What I'd seen as vigilance looked like controlling behavior from the outside. The timestamps painted me as the unstable one, the jealous girlfriend who couldn't trust her partner. Even my relief at saving Biscuit worked against me. Pet store security footage from that evening showed me laughing and playing with him, buying him special treats and toys. Ryan's narrative twisted it. How could I be truly afraid for my life yet seem so carefree hours later? Where was my concern for our relationship? The realization hit me like cold water. Whichever twin was lying had been planning this for months. Every interaction had been calculated. Every piece of evidence could be read 2 ways. There was no clean exit now, no simple truth that would make everything clear. 2 weeks passed in a blur of escalating tactics. Ryan started bringing coffee to my coworker Sarah, casually quoting my favorite books in their conversations. He knew them all because he'd been using my Netflix password to study my preferences, my interests, my weaknesses. Sarah thought he was charming, thoughtful, just trying to understand what went wrong between us. I discovered the recording app on my phone had been running for hours, capturing conversations I didn't remember starting. Ryan had installed it months ago for security purposes, but now the timestamps showed recordings during arguments we'd had, moments when I'd vented frustration about his behavior. He'd edited them, splicing together my words to create damning evidence of instability. The next morning, I confronted him about the recordings. He simply smiled and showed me a document on his laptop, a transcript where I appeared to threaten him. The words were mine, technically, pulled from different conversations and rearranged. When I grabbed for the laptop, he pulled it away, and in the struggle, I accidentally knocked over his coffee mug. The hot liquid splashed across important papers on the table, including Emma's recommendation letter draft. Ryan photographed the damage immediately, documenting my destructive behavior. The ruined recommendation letter became another weapon in his arsenal. Emma called within hours, sobbing. Ryan had informed her that due to the incident, he couldn't in good conscience recommend someone whose friend displayed such volatility. I tried explaining the situation to Emma, but she was beyond reasoning. Her daughter's future depended on this nursing program. The deadline was tomorrow. She begged me to apologize, to make things right. When I refused to admit fault for something I hadn't done, she hung up. Our 15-year friendship ended with a dial tone. The coffee shop encounters with Sarah escalated. Ryan started arriving during her shifts, bringing her favorite pastries from the bakery down the street. He'd mentioned details about our relationship that painted him as the long-suffering boyfriend, trying to help his mentally unstable girlfriend. Sarah, who'd always been friendly to me, started avoiding eye contact when I came in. My old texts to Ryan surfaced in unexpected ways. He'd saved every message where I'd praised his protectiveness, his dedication, his intensity. Now he forwarded them to concerned friends as evidence of our once healthy relationship that I was destroying with paranoid delusions. The texts were real, my words genuine from a time when his attention felt like love instead of control. I noticed neighbors whispering in the hallway, conversations stopping when I appeared. The building's group chat, which I'd been removed from, apparently buzzed with concerns about the situation in our apartment. Someone had shared Marcus's live stream clips, and theories ranged from substance problems to mental breakdown. While gardening in the communal area, trying to find some peace, Marcus's younger sister approached me. She tilted her head, studying me with the brutal honesty only children possess. She mentioned her mother's warnings about staying away from our apartment, how I'd become someone to avoid. The child skipped away, leaving me kneeling in the dirt with dead flowers. The baby monitor app notification surprised me. I'd forgotten Ryan had access from when we'd babysat his nephew months ago. The app had been running in the background, recording audio from my phone. My conversation with a lawyer about protecting my assets, moving money to a separate account, planning an exit strategy, all captured and stored in the cloud Ryan could access. My attempts to document Ryan's behavior backfired spectacularly. When I tried recording him during an argument, he spotted the red dot on my Apple Watch indicating active recording. He shifted tactics immediately, speaking calmly calmly about his concerns for my mental health while I, frustrated and exhausted, raised my voice. The recording, if ever played, would only support his narrative. The court-ordered counseling session arrived faster than expected. The judge, reviewing the emergency restraining order Ryan had filed, saw a pattern of escalating behavior, but not the one I'd hoped to prove. My frantic texts, the destroyed recommendation letter, the secret recordings, my financial maneuvering, it all painted a picture of someone spiraling out of control. During the session, Ryan presented himself as concerned and compassionate. He spoke softly about wanting to help me, about his fears for my well-being. When I tried to explain about Biscuit, about the vet clinic, the counselor's expression grew more skeptical. A man taking a dog to the vet, even without permission, hardly seemed like attempted murder. Without context, without the full pattern, it sounded like I was catastrophizing. The joint savings account became a battlefield. I needed to protect my money, but every attempt to withdraw funds was documented, screenshot, added to Ryan's growing file of evidence. The security questions for our online banking revealed more than I'd realized. He'd set them up using details about his mother, his childhood pets, his favorite teachers. Each question reminded me how deeply he'd embedded himself in every aspect of my life. Nathan's ex-girlfriend's obituary became an obsession. I spent hours researching, finding social media posts from before her death. The pattern was eerily familiar. Isolation from friends, strange incidents with her cat, a boyfriend who seemed perfect until he wasn't. But every piece of evidence I found came from unreliable sources, personal blogs, comments that could be dismissed as gossip. The veterinary clinic where Ryan's mother's dog had been euthanized 5 years ago was the same one where he'd taken Biscuit. The coincidence felt significant, but proving it meant something required more than just suspicion. I drove there, hoping to find records, but privacy laws and time meant most documentation was gone or inaccessible. Ryan's manipulation of Sarah intensified. He started showing up during her breaks, walking her to her car for safety. He'd mention his concern about my behavior, how he worried I might show up at her workplace. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was the one appearing constantly, but framed as protection rather than stalking. The therapist assigned to our case had to report concerning statements to the court-appointed mediator. My insistence that Ryan had tried to cull my dog, that there was a pattern with his ex-girlfriend, that his mother's death might not have been natural, it all sounded like paranoid delusions without hard evidence. Each session meant to help only provided more documentation of my apparent instability. Biscuit's specialist appointment conflicted with a crucial court date. The vet had found irregularities in his blood work, possibly related to stress or something more serious. Missing the appointment meant risking his health. Missing court meant defaulting on important decisions about our shared apartment and assets. Ryan knew this, had probably planned it. I chose Biscuit, arriving at the specialist to find the vet tech who'd originally called me about the euthanization attempt. She looked uncomfortable, avoided eye contact. When I asked if she'd testify about what happened, she shook her head. The clinic had received an anonymous complaint about her unprofessional behavior in contacting me. She couldn't risk her license, her career. She had kids to feed. The apartment felt different when I returned. Nothing obvious, but small things out of place. My father's old shirt, which I kept in a drawer, lay on my bed. My perfume bottle had moved to Ryan's nightstand. He'd been there while I was at work, making himself comfortable in what was supposed to be my safe space. Ryan's offer came through Emma, of all people. He'd told her he was willing to compromise. I could keep Biscuit if I dropped all accusations and moved out quietly. He'd even help with moving costs, finding me a new place. All I had to do was admit I'd been going through a difficult time. That stress had made me imagine things. Emma begged me to take the deal, to think of Biscuit's well-being. The refusal cost me more than I'd anticipated. Ryan forwarded our entire email chain to my family, showing how I'd chosen revenge over my dog's stability. My mother, already stressed from her surgery recovery, called crying. She begged me to stop the drama, to think about how this was affecting everyone. My father, who'd caused our family's first collapse, now lectured me about causing unnecessary conflict. I started recognizing Ryan's tactics in my own behavior. To get Nathan's sealed therapy records, I befriended his parole officer at a community service event. I pretended to be interested in rehabilitation programs, volunteered to help with filing, gained trust I planned to exploit. The person I was becoming frightened me, but stopping meant letting Ryan win. The grief support group for pet loss met at the community center Tuesday evenings. I attended, hoping to accidentally encounter Ryan's ex-girlfriend's sister. When she walked in, I had my story ready, a fabricated tale of loss designed to gain sympathy and access. As I spoke about losing a pet I hadn't lost, I realized I was lying as smoothly as Ryan did. Cloud storage revealed more than I'd expected. Ryan's ex had documented everything, texts showing increasing control, photos of her cat's mysterious injuries, journal entries about feeling trapped, but she'd also documented her own mental health struggles, her anxiety, her tendency to overthink things. Ryan had saved it all, prepared to use her own words against her if needed. The ex's sister complicated everything. She wanted her sister's belongings back from Ryan, but she also wanted closure, answers, someone to blame. Her grief made her unpredictable, showing up at our apartment at odd hours, posting accusations online that made my own claims seem less credible by association. She became another chaos element Ryan could point to as evidence of unstable people making unfounded accusations. Fighting two battles, protecting Biscuit and proving Ryan's pattern, stretched me too thin. I missed Biscuit's medication window one evening, distracted by documenting evidence. The emergency vet visit at 2 a.m. was logged as owner negligence, another mark against my fitness as a pet owner. The vet's concerned look said more than words could. Legal fees drained my credit cards while Ryan used our joint accounts freely. He'd positioned himself as the stable one, the one maintaining normalcy while I spiraled into conspiracy theories. Banks don't care about personal drama. They see account holders and signatures. Every withdrawal I made looked like financial retaliation rather than self-protection. The dog park incident happened on a sunny Thursday. I'd taken Biscuit for his morning walk when Ryan appeared with Sarah and her young daughter. The child ran toward Biscuit, arms outstretched, and in my panic to protect my dog from potential harm, I scooped him up too quickly. Biscuit, startled, nipped at the air. No one was hurt, but parents pulled their children away. Someone called animal control. By afternoon, I was banned from the dog park. The report cited aggressive animal and unstable owner behavior. Ryan had witnesses, other dog owners who'd seen me acting erratically with my pet. Sarah's daughter's tears, though caused by fear rather than injury, painted a damning picture. Another public space lost. Another piece of evidence against me. The job loss came through a phone call from HR. Ryan's father, a hospital board member, had expressed concerns about family drama affecting workplace productivity. They couldn't explicitly fire me for personal issues, but suddenly my position was being restructured, my role redundant. 2 weeks severance and a suggestion to use the time to focus on personal wellness. Sarah got my job. She started the following Monday, bringing Ryan coffee during her breaks, laughing at inside jokes about books I'd recommended to her months ago. Watching them through the office windows as I packed my desk felt like watching my life get rewritten with someone else in the starring role. Living in my car with Biscuit wasn't the lowest point. It was Ryan occupying our apartment, claiming tenant rights while I struggled to find pet-friendly accommodations I could afford without a job. Biscuit's specialist appointment versus court date feels like choosing between a root canal and jury duty, except one involves your actual heart and the other just wants to rip it out legally. The lease was in both our names. The law didn't care who was right or wrong, only whose name was on documents. Biscuit slept curled against me in the backseat, both of us refugees from our own home. My father's call came while I was parked outside a grocery store, trying to make a bag of dog food last another week. His voice carried disappointment as he talked about my mother's stress, how my drama was affecting her recovery. He used words like stubborn and vindictive, suggesting I was just like him, someone who destroyed family peace for selfish reasons. The comparison stung because I could see how it looked from the outside. Emma's life unraveled because of me. Without the recommendation letter, she'd lost her spot in the nursing program. Her husband blamed me for her association with an unstable friend. Their marriage counselor suggested distance from toxic relationships. Emma's daughter would ask why mommy cried so much, why she couldn't become a nurse like she'd promised. The ripple effects of my fight with Ryan spread far beyond us. I kept pursuing the truth anyway, even as I watched Emma's marriage strain, her dreams crumble. The guilt ate at me, but stopping felt like betraying not just myself, but Ryan's ex-girlfriend, possibly his mother, anyone else who might become his next victim. The cost of justice kept climbing, paid in other people's futures. Nathan found me at a rest stop where I'd parked to let Biscuit stretch his legs. He looked worse than before, thinner, more haunted. He asked a question that shattered my certainty. What if they were both telling the truth in their own way? What if Ryan genuinely believed he was protecting me, while Nathan genuinely believed Ryan was dangerous? Mental illness, he explained, could run in families, manifest differently in twins. I couldn't answer immediately. The possibility that both brothers might be unreliable narrators, that I was caught between two versions of distorted reality, made everything I'd sacrificed seem pointless. Biscuit pressed against my leg, sensing my distress. Nathan waited for an answer I didn't have. To maintain credibility in my accusations, I had to admit to my own past mistakes. I publicly acknowledged keying Ryan's car during a fight 2 years ago, when I'd suspected him of cheating. The admission was supposed to show growth, self-awareness, contrast with Ryan's inability to admit fault. Instead, it became evidence of my history of destructive behavior in relationships. The vet records revealed something I'd missed. Biscuit had shown signs of stress for months. Weight loss, anxiety behaviors, digestive issues, all documented during routine visits I'd made, complaining about his symptoms without recognizing the pattern. Ryan's concern about Biscuit's health wasn't entirely fabricated. He'd noticed what I'd been too distracted to see, twisted genuine worry into an excuse for elimination. Ryan's lawyer filed an emergency motion to advance our hearing date, knowing my lawyer was dealing with a family crisis. The choice was stark: represent myself with no legal training or request a delay that would leave Biscuit and me in limbo longer. Ryan knew I'd choose to fight unprepared rather than wait. The realization that Ryan genuinely believed his actions were loving hit during a chance encounter at the pharmacy. He was picking up anxiety medication, the same prescription his mother had taken. He looked tired, stressed, human. When he saw me, his expression showed genuine concern, not manipulation. In his mind, removing sources of stress and divided attention was an act of love, protection, devotion. His twisted logic made a horrible kind of sense. If you believed that love meant total focus, complete dedication, then anything that divided attention was a threat. Pets, friends, hobbies, all competitions for the finite resource of devotion. Eliminating them wasn't cruel. It was necessary, like removing weeds from a garden so the flowers could thrive. To expose him, I had to become like him. I used Biscuit as bait, bringing him to places I knew Ryan frequented, hoping to provoke a reaction that could be documented. Every time I saw Biscuit's trusting eyes, knowing I was putting him at risk for evidence, I hated myself a little more. The promise to keep him safe bent under the weight of necessity. My empathy died piece by piece. When Nathan showed signs of mental health deterioration, talking to himself, losing track of conversations, I saw opportunity instead of concern. His symptoms could discredit Ryan if properly documented. I recorded Nathan's confused moments, his rambling about their mother, his breakdown at the bus stop. Evidence was evidence, even if gathering it meant exploiting someone's illness. The group therapy sponsor was lonely, eager for connection. I recognized the signs because I'd once been the same. Over coffee, I listened to his stories about facilitating sessions, about the challenges of helping people heal. I laughed at his jokes, touched his hand, made him feel seen, all while planning to use his access to get Nathan's confidential records. The seduction felt mechanical, calculated. Every smile, every gesture designed to build trust I planned to betray. When he finally offered to show me the facility where he worked, proud of his role in helping others, I accepted with enthusiasm I didn't feel. My old self would have been horrified at using someone's loneliness against them. Nathan's medical records revealed the full picture. He'd been committed after discovering uncovering evidence about Ryan's first victim, the ex-girlfriend. But his method of discovery involved breaking into Ryan's apartment, stealing documents, behavior that looked like stalking from the outside. His warnings had been dismissed as delusions because they came wrapped in genuinely concerning behavior. The small victory of proving Ryan had lied about something specific, the timestamp on a receipt, a documented phone call he denied making, felt hollow when I saw him at his mother's grave. He knelt in the grass, shoulders shaking, grieving genuinely for a woman whose death might have been his fault. Both of us mourning different versions of the same person, neither fully true. Ryan's counterclaim gained traction as the judge reviewed evidence. My living situation, my job loss, my documented erratic behavior all supported his narrative of an unstable ex-girlfriend. The fact that I was living in my car with Biscuit while he maintained stable housing and employment spoke louder than any accusation I could make. Everything hinged on the security footage from the vet clinic's parking lot. The interior footage showed Ryan bringing Biscuit in, but the parking lot cameras might have captured something more. His demeanor arriving, conversations in the car, evidence of premeditation. But accessing it required legal channels I was struggling to navigate alone, procedures that took time I didn't have. My past kindness became leverage against me. Ryan's nephew, who I'd babysat and bought gifts for, now wore Biscuit's old collar as a bracelet. The child's innocent question about why I was being mean to Uncle Ryan, spoken in front of court mediators, carried more weight than any adult testimony. Children don't lie, after all, and his confusion seemed genuine. The veterinary community split on the ethics of the situation. Some saw clear evidence of attempted animal abuse. Others saw a concerned boyfriend trying to make a difficult decision about a sick pet. Without proof of malicious intent, taking a dog to a vet wasn't inherently criminal. Professional opinions varied, and divided expert testimony helped no one. The legal system's requirements frustrated me. Proof of intent mattered more than actions. Ryan taking Biscuit to be euthanized wasn't enough. I had to prove he knew I'd object, that he'd done it maliciously rather than out of misguided concern. Every legal standard seemed designed to protect people like Ryan who could frame cruelty as care. I called in a favor from my ex's veterinary connections, people who'd known me before Ryan, who might view the situation more objectively. One agreed to review the records, to look for patterns others might miss. Her professional opinion carried weight, but she made it clear she wouldn't testify officially. Her license, her practice, her family's stability came first. The records she reviewed revealed something chilling. The vet who'd treated Biscuit had also treated Ryan's mother's dog before her death, a pattern of anxiety-induced accidents that escalated until euthanization seemed merciful. The same vet, the same progression, years apart, but correlation wasn't causation, and veterinary records couldn't prove human intent. The deeper I dug, the more I realized Ryan's mother might have been his first practice run. She'd asked too many questions about a neighbor's death, started documenting concerns about her son. Then her dog developed mysterious symptoms. She became isolated, depressed, and finally had a heart attack that surprised no one. Proving it meant admitting I'd missed the same pattern happening to me. Nathan's institution records, obtained through betraying the therapy sponsor's trust, revealed he'd been committed after discovering Ryan's involvement with their mother's death. But his discovery method, breaking into medical facilities, stealing records, confronting Ryan publicly, made him look dangerously unstable. The truth came wrapped in genuinely concerning behavior that discredited the message. Evidence mounted, but required destroying people to obtain it. Nathan's fragile mental health shattered further under my questioning. The therapy sponsor lost his job when the breach was discovered. Emma's marriage ended in divorce. My sister's adoption was put on hold. Every piece of proof came with collateral damage that made me question if justice was worth the cost. I finally accepted what pursuing Ryan meant. Living in your car with your dog while your ex keeps the apartment is peak winning the breakup energy. Biscuit probably has opinions about the new accommodations, but at least the rent's free now. Every red flag I'd ignored, every warning sign I'd rationalized would be exposed. My willingness to stay with someone who showed controlling behavior, my own toxic responses, the way I'd enabled him until it affected me personally, all would be public record. Justice meant admitting my own complicity in reaching this point. The commitment to exposing Ryan came with full knowledge of the personal cost. Family shame, public humiliation, the judgment of everyone who'd wonder why I stayed so long. But Biscuit deserved better. Ryan's ex-girlfriend deserved justice. His mother deserved truth. Future victims deserved warning. My comfort mattered less than preventing another tragedy. Ryan's signed vet form contained the smoking GN. He'd used his dead mother's maiden name instead of his own. A small lie that proved consciousness of guilt, awareness that what he was doing was wrong. He'd hidden behind a dead woman's identity to call my dog, just as he'd hidden behind concern and love to control my life. I presented the evidence without emotion, laying out the pattern piece by piece. Ryan's mask finally slipped as he realized the trap he'd walked into. Using his mother's name had been reflexive, a habit from previous times. His face went white, then red, cycling through emotions as his carefully constructed narrative crumbled. The legal momentum shifted as professionals recognized the pattern. A man who used dead relatives' names to euthanize animals, who had multiple women in his past with similar stories, who showed escalating controlling behavior. It painted a picture impossible to ignore. The individual pieces might be explained away, but together they formed an undeniable pattern. Both sides prepared for the final hearing. Custody of Biscuit had become the gateway to larger questions about Ryan's behavior, potential criminal charges, the truth about his mother and ex-girlfriend. The community watched, divided between those who'd seen the signs and those who'd enabled through ignorance or disbelief. Everyone had to choose a side now. The records my ex's veterinary connection reviewed contained more damning details. Ryan's mother's dog had visited that same clinic 6 times in the month before her death, each visit documenting escalating accidents that mirrored Biscuit's recent symptoms. The vet tech who'd treated both animals had left the practice shortly after, citing personal reasons. I tracked her down through social media, finding her working at a grooming salon 3 towns over. She agreed to meet me at a diner during her lunch break. Her hands shook as she described Ryan bringing in his mother's dog, insisting on discretion, paying cash. She'd been new then, eager to please, hadn't questioned the pattern until it was too late. When I showed her Biscuit's recent records, her face went pale. She recognized the progression but refused to go on record. Her new life, her family's safety, came first. The custody hearing arrived with both sides armed for battle. Ryan's lawyer presented my living situation, my job loss, the dog park incident, framing me as an unstable pet owner who couldn't provide proper care. I countered with the vet records, the false name on the euthanization form, the pattern spanning years. The judge's expression remained neutral, weighing evidence that painted both of us as problematic. During a recess, I found Nathan in the courthouse bathroom, washing his face repeatedly. His medication wasn't working anymore, he explained between compulsive rinses. The stress of testifying, of confronting Ryan, had triggered something deeper. I watched him spiral, knowing I'd contributed to his breakdown by pushing him to help me. Another casualty in my war for truth. Ryan's psychiatrist took the stand, breaking confidentiality under court order. The testimony revealed Ryan had discussed his mother during sessions, describing her death as necessary and merciful. He'd spoken about relationships requiring complete devotion, about removing obstacles to achieve perfect unity. The psychiatrist's notes documented concerning statements that hadn't risen to mandatory reporting levels until now. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. She'd decided to support me after all. Consequences be damned. Her husband had agreed that some things mattered more than adoption timelines. She sat in the gallery, our first eye contact in weeks, small victories in an ocean of losses. The judge ordered a recess to review new evidence. In the hallway, Ryan approached me while his lawyer was distracted. He explained calmly that he'd only wanted to protect me, to create the perfect relationship his parents had modeled. His mother had understood in the end, he insisted. She'd thanked him for ending her dog's suffering, for helping her focus on what mattered. The casual way he spoke about orchestrating death chilled me more than any threat could. Nathan's psychiatrist testified next, revealing that Nathan had been committed after breaking into Ryan's apartment and finding veterinary records dating back years. His obsession with proving Ryan's pattern had consumed him, destroyed his credibility. The truth had driven him to madness, making him the perfect, unreliable witness. Ryan had counted on this, had perhaps even orchestrated it. Phone records subpoenaed by the court showed Ryan's search history from 2 weeks before his supposed trip. Searches for pet euthanization without owner consent, legal requirements for putting down animals, and veterinary clinics with discretion painted a clear picture of premeditation. His lawyer argued these were taken out of context, that Ryan had been researching options for a sick pet, nothing more. The community Facebook group had exploded into warring factions. Some neighbors testified about Ryan's helpfulness, his charm, his dedication to our relationship. Others mentioned odd incidents, pets going missing, strange sounds from our apartment, my increasing isolation. The division ran deep, friendships ending over chosen sides. Emma appeared as a character witness for Ryan, describing how I'd destroyed her career prospects over a misunderstanding. She detailed the ruined recommendation letter, my refusal to apologize, the cascade of consequences that followed. Her testimony hurt more than any other, watching my former best friend paint me as vindictive and unstable. Sarah testified next, explaining how Ryan had been nothing but professional and supportive during a difficult time. She described my erratic behavior at the coffee shop, my apparent jealousy over their friendship. The job transition had been smooth, she insisted, with Ryan ensuring continuity despite personal turmoil. Another narrative where I was the villain, Ryan the victim. The vet who'd nearly euthanized Biscuit finally took the stand. Under oath, he admitted Ryan had specifically requested an untraceable procedure, had offered extra payment for discretion. The request had raised red flags, leading to the security footage that saved Biscuit's life. His testimony carried weight that personal accounts couldn't match. Ryan's composure cracked as evidence mounted. His hand-washing became compulsive during breaks, scrubbing until his skin turned red. The mask of concerned boyfriend slit, revealing something darker underneath. When the judge questioned him directly about using his mother's name, he couldn't maintain eye contact, his prepared explanations faltering. My lawyer presented the final piece of evidence, a pattern analysis showing 3 women in Ryan's past, all with pets that died mysteriously before the women either left him or died themselves. The pattern was circumstantial but compelling. Each woman had become isolated, paranoid, dismissed as unstable before their tragic ends. I was simply the first to survive long enough to expose it. The judge's decision came down to Biscuit's welfare. Temporary custody was awarded to me, with Ryan prohibited from any contact with the dog. Criminal charges would be pursued separately for fraud and attempted animal cruelty. The restraining order was extended, keeping Ryan away from both Biscuit and me. Not the complete vindication I'd hoped for, but enough to ensure safety. Ryan's family sat behind him throughout the hearing, his father's expression shifting from support to horror as evidence mounted. His mother's death, previously accepted as natural, now carried sinister implications. His brothers exchanged glances, perhaps recognizing patterns they'd dismissed. The family dynasty of control showed its cracks. Nathan was remanded to psychiatric care, his testimony deemed inadmissible due to mental state. I watched them lead him away, knowing I'd used his illness for my own ends. The guilt sat heavy, another weight among many. Justice had required sacrifices I'd never imagined making. The apartment was mine to return to, but it felt contaminated. Ryan's presence lingered in every room, memories of manipulation tainting the space. Biscuit refused to enter at first, whimpering at the threshold. We both knew we couldn't stay there, couldn't reclaim what had been violated. My sister helped me pack, working in silence, broken only by the tape Jian's harsh sound. She'd chosen family over safety, a decision that would have consequences we couldn't yet foresee. Her husband waited in the car, supportive but wary, understanding the risk they'd taken. The storage unit held what remained of my life with Ryan. Photos, gifts, shared possessions that neither of us could claim fully. I left it all there, paying for another month while deciding what deserved saving. Most of it would eventually be donated or destroyed. Artifacts of a relationship built on control disguised as love. Finding pet-friendly housing with no job and a damaged reputation proved nearly impossible. Landlords Googled applicants now, and my name brought up the viral posts, the community drama, the legal battles. One finally took pity, or perhaps saw opportunity in notoriety. The studio apartment was small but allowed dogs. A fresh start in a neighborhood where nobody knew our story. Biscuit's health improved away from the stress. His appetite returned, his coat regained shine. The vet remarked on his transformation, how removing environmental stressors had reversed months of decline. We walked new routes, established new routines, both of us learning to trust again. The criminal case proceeded slowly. Ryan's lawyer negotiated, seeking mental health treatment over jail time. The prosecutor pushed for both, citing the pattern of victims. I testified again, reliving moments I wanted to forget, watching Ryan's face remain expressionless throughout. He'd convinced himself he was the victim, that love justified any action. Community sentiment shifted as more details emerged. The Facebook group archived itself after legal threats and doxing incidents. Marcus's mother apologized for the live stream that started the public spiral, not knowing how far it would spread. The damage was done, but acknowledgement helped slightly. Job hunting with my reputation proved challenging. Background checks revealed the drama. References were complicated by Ryan's father's influence. I took freelance work, building a client base slowly, accepting that traditional employment might never be possible. Financial stability remained a distant goal. Emma reached out once, a tentative text asking how I was. I didn't respond. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Some friendships couldn't survive betrayal. Her choice to support Ryan for career advancement had revealed priorities I couldn't forgive. The silence said everything necessary. Ryan's trial concluded with mandated psychiatric treatment and probation. No jail time, but intensive therapy and monitoring. The judge acknowledged the pattern while stopping short of connecting him to his mother's death. Without bodies to exhume, without concrete proof, suspicion remained just that. He'd face consequences, but not the full weight of his actions. The restraining order held firm. Ryan couldn't contact me, couldn't come near Biscuit. Legal protection that felt both essential and insufficient. Paper barriers against someone who'd shown how far he'd go for control. I varied my routines, stayed vigilant, knowing obsession didn't end with court orders. Nathan's condition stabilized with proper treatment. His psychiatrist sent updates through my lawyer, small progress notes that carried enormous weight. He'd never be fully well, the truth having broken something fundamental, but he'd found peace in routine and medication. Another life altered permanently by Ryan's wake. 6 months later, I testified at a legislative hearing about gaps in animal protection laws, not for fame or attention, but because Biscuit's near death had exposed how easily pets could be culled by those claiming to help. My voice shook, but I spoke clearly about the need for better verification, for protecting the vulnerable. The therapy dog certification came through after months of training. Biscuit's gentle nature, his survival story, made him perfect for working with domestic violence survivors. We visited shelters together, his presence offering comfort I couldn't provide with words. Purpose born from trauma, helping others navigate similar darkness. Ryan's family fractured after the trial. His brothers distanced themselves. His father retreated into denial. The perfect family facade crumbled as questions about the mother's death lingered. They'd enabled through ignorance or willful blindness, and now faced their own reckoning. I still check locks twice, still flinch at unexpected knocks. Trust comes harder now. Relationships viewed through lens of experience. But Biscuit sleeps peacefully beside me, no longer anxious, no longer afraid. We survived together, scarred but breathing, proof that love shouldn't require sacrifice of self. The story spreads quietly through support groups, warning others about partners who isolate, who eliminate distractions, who claim devotion while practicing control. Not viral fame, but whispered caution, helping others recognize patterns before it's too late. Biscuit and I became accidental educators, teaching through survival. Some nights I dream about Ryan's mother, wondering if she knew what was coming, if she tried to warn anyone. Her diary was never found, if it existed at all. But her dog's medical records tell a story of escalating control, of someone learning how far they could push before breaking point. I honor her memory by refusing to be silent. The apartment stays small but safe. Biscuit has his favorite sunny spot. I have my freelance work. We have our quiet routine. No grand resolution, no perfect ending, just daily choice to keep going. Ryan took much, but not everything. What remains is enough to build on, carefully and with constant vigilance. Recovery isn't linear. Some days the anger overwhelms, other days the guilt. The people hurt by my pursuit of truth, Emma, Nathan, the therapy sponsor, haunt quiet moments. Justice came with collateral damage I'll carry forever. But Biscuit's steady breathing reminds me why it mattered, why silence would have been worse. We walk past other dogs now without fear. Biscuit plays at the new park. I chat with other owners about safe topics, normal moments that once seemed impossible. The hypervigilance remains but softens slightly with time. We're learning to live with scars rather than despite them. Ryan serves his mandated therapy, files his required reports. The system monitors him, protects future victims through documentation and restriction. Not perfect justice, but something. He'll find ways around it eventually. Predators always do, but the pattern is documented now. The next woman might Google his name, might see the warnings, might run before it's too late. I keep the vet records in a safety deposit box, evidence of what love shouldn't look like. Biscuit's medical history tells our story in clinical terms. Stress markers, weight loss, mysterious injuries, near death, slow recovery, data points that map trauma and survival, proof that stays safe from fire or theft or deliberate destruction. The anniversary passes quietly. 1 year since the phone call that saved Biscuit's life. I buy him a special treat. He wags his tail. We continue our walk. No fanfare, no social media posts, just private acknowledgement of survival. The date matters only to us, and that's enough. Thanks for reading this story with me, even though it got pretty heavy at times. I hope you have a wonderful day filled with loyal dogs and zero creepy boyfriends. See you next time.